Hey guys, tonight, we're going to step into the brilliant, yet isolated mind of one of history's greatest inventors during his final, quiet years. You are Nikola Tesla, a man who imagined and built the future, now living out your days in the hushed, carpeted hallways of a New York hotel. You're about to check into the Hotel New Yorker, your final home, and step with me into tonight's boring adventure. It's a world of polite bellhops and starched linen, but it's also a gilded cage built of pride and secrets. An assistant, a subordinate from the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company, has already handled the arrangements. The air smells of floor polish, expensive perfume, and the faint, clean scent of sterilized air being pumped through the ventilation system. Modern convenience you can help but appreciate. Your eyes, deep set and piercing, scan the cavernous space. We have your suites ready, 3,327 and 3,328, just as you specified. It's a voice that once held lecture halls captive, that once commanded millionaires to invest in fantastical towers. Now, it's used to confirm lodging. Marble floors gleam under the soft light of ornate. The arrangement is that the Westinghouse Company will be footing the bill. A bellhop approaches, ready to guide you, but you wave him off with a flick of your long, slender fingers. The carpet is thick, swallowing the sound of your footsteps. It feels like walking through a dream. You arrive at your door, 3,327. You pause, your hand hovering over the keyhole. You have lived in hotels for the better part of 4 decades, from the Waldorf Astoria in its heyday to the Governor Clintar just last year. Each move was prompted by unpaid bills, by a quiet suggestion that your patronage was no longer welcome. This one, he filled, will be different. This one will be the last. Here, on the 33rd floor, you will finish your work. You will perfect the death, as you call Etand. You will finally secure your legacy and a world free from war. It is all here, waiting, behind this door. All you have to do is turn the key and step inside. You insert the key, turn it 3 times, and push the door open into the quiet, obsessive final chapter of your life. You wait patiently, refusing to press the button yourself. You wait for someone else to arrive, for another guest to summon the car. It's part of the routine, the complex web of compulsions that now governs your life. Everything must be divisible by 3. The walk to the elevator, the number of steps you take, the way you fold your napkin at dinner, it's all part of a silent, mathematical prayer. You know the way. More importantly, you cannot stand to be touched. The thought of a stranger's hand brushing against yours, of their germs violating your personal space, is a horror you cannot abide. Historians still argue whether this profound germophobia was a lifelong trait or a defensive mechanism that intensified with age and disappointment. It was a negotiation, one handled by intermediaries, a delicate dance to preserve your dignity. You are, for all intents and purposes, a permanent guest whose patronage is a matter of corporate charity. It's a galling reality, one you choose to ignore with the full force of your considerable intellect. Plush velvet chairs are arranged in conversational islands, occupied by men in sharp suits and women in elegant hats. To them, you are just another distinguished, elderly gentleman. They have no idea that the mind passing them by is the same one that tamed Niagara Falls and dreamed of pulling limitless energy from the very fabric of the cosmos. As the car ascends, you feel a familiar sense of detachment. You are rising above the city, above the grit and the noise, to your new sanctuary. Suite 3,327 will be your laboratory, your office, and your fortress. Suite 3,328 will be for your equipment, or, more accurately, for the memory of equipment. As you now conduct your most important experiments entirely within the pristine, boundless laboratory of your mind, it's a courtesy, a small perk from the company that owes its entire alternating current empire to your You sold them long ago for a fortune that has since evaporated like morning mist. You feel a familiar, faint pang of resentment, but you push it down. Pride is the last currency you have, and you spend it carefully. You're a titan of invention, the father of the modern age, but the world that runs on your ideas has largely forgotten you. Your task tonight isn't to invent a new world, but simply to navigate this one with its crushing routines, its haunting memories, and the silent, steady companionship of pigeons. Instead, you walk with a slow, deliberate gait toward the manager's office, your posture ramrod straight despite your 78 years. You have an arrangement. You always have an arrangement. The hotel manager, a man named Mr. McGinnity, rises to greet you. He's deferential, respectful. He knows your name, of course. Everyone in a certain circle knows of Nikola Tesla. They see you as a living legend, a relic from a more optimistic age. They also see you as a financial risk, a man known for racking up impressive bills and then finding creative ways to settle them. Honestly, given the intense mental loops and the crushing weight of unfulfilled dreams, you probably won't survive this. But you might just drift off to a very deep sleep trying. So, before you settle into comfort, if stories like this bring you a sense of peace, please consider a gentle tap on the like and subscribe buttons. There's no obligation, of course, but it truly helps our late-night journeys find more fellow travelers. And as always, I'd love to see where you're listening from. It's the height of the Great Depression, yet the city still pulses with a defiant energy. You, however, are an island of calm within this storm. Tall, impeccably dressed in a suit that, while a decade old, is still perfectly tailored. You stand before the grand entrance of the Hotel New Yorker. It's a modern marvel of Art Deco design, soaring 43 stories into the sky. Its geometric patterns, a testament to the very future you helped forge. Go ahead and post your city or country and the local time in the comments. It is always a quiet thrill to see our little community of night owls stretching all across the globe. Now, let the outside world fade away. Dim the lights down low. Let the soft white noise of a fan carry you. Take a deep breath. The year is 1934. The air in Manhattan is thick with a strange mixture of desperation and determined glamour. You don't carry any luggage. You never do. You walk through the revolving doors, and the chaotic symphony of 34th Street and 8th Avenue is instantly muted, replaced by the hushed reverence of the lobby. You don't approach the main check-in desk. That would be too common. Dr. Tesla, he says, his smile professionally warm. Welcome to the New Yorker. You give a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The arrangement is satisfactory, you ask, your voice a low baritone with the lingering traces of your Serbian accent. Yes, of course, the manager reassures you, though a slight flicker in his eyes betrays the truth. You are given your keys. You don't thank the manager. You simply incline your head again and turn to leave. You walk to the bank of elevators, their bronze doors polished to a mirror shine. The elevator arrives. You step inside, careful to stand in a corner, creating as much distance as possible from the other occupants. The elevator dings softly at the 33rd floor. The doors open onto a long, silent corridor. The heavy hotel room door clicks shut behind you, and the sound is beautifully final. For a moment, you just stand there in the small foyer of your new suite, allowing the silence to settle. You walk the perimeter of the room, your long, slow strides measuring its dimensions. You are not just walking, you are claiming the space, imposing your own order onto it. Your mind, a relentless engine of calculation, notes the number of steps, the placement of the furniture, the quality of the light filtering through the large windows. Breakfast arrives at precisely 8 a.m., left outside your door, a way to keep your formidable intellect honed to a razor's edge while the world outside refused to provide you with a proper laboratory. Perhaps the truth is that it was both. The noise of the world is a distraction, a pollutant. You provide the hotel kitchen with exacting instructions, not just on the food itself, but its preparation. Everything is to be boiled. It is the cleanest, purest way to cook. Your meals are simple, almost ascetic, yet you demand they be served on the finest china, with the heaviest silverware, all of which you have, of course, sterilized yourself with half of your daily towel allotment. It's not about luxury, it's about standards. The world may have descended into the chaos of depression and looming war, but in Suite 3327, order reigns supreme. It has to, because without this rigid, unyielding, tyrannical routine, you fear the vastness of your own mind might swallow you whole. Instead, you work, you close your eyes and the hotel room dissolves. In its place, a machine appears, fully formed in the theater of your imagination. It might be a new type of turbine, or a component for your Teleforce weapon. You can see it in perfect three-dimensional detail, more clearly than if it were on a blueprint. You can rotate it, disassemble it, examine each gear and wire. Then, you turn it on. You let it run for weeks, months, right there inside your head. observing it for any signs of wear, any imbalance, any flaw in the design. It is a unique gift, this power of visualization. It's also a quirky tidbit of your life that you once boasted you could build, run, and repair your inventions entirely in your mind, making physical prototypes almost an afterthought. By controlling every minute detail of your immediate environment, from the towels to the toast, you create a stable platform from which your mind can leap into the chaotic, brilliant, and often terrifying cosmos of your ideas. You bring it in, and the true work begins before you take a single bite. You might sit in an armchair by the window, the city sprawling beneath you, a breathtaking tapestry of steel and stone. You can see the Empire State Building, the Chrysler. You see the tendrils of traffic, the endless rivers of humanity flowing through the city's concrete canyons. And you know, with a certainty that is both gratifying and deeply lonely, that this entire spectacle is running on your dreams. The alternating current that powers the lights, the elevators, the very heartbeat of this metropolis, it came from you. You gave them this power, and they have no idea you are watching them now from this high, silent perch. You stare at the food on the plate. With a fork and knife, you carefully measure the dimensions of the toast. You calculate its cubic volume. You do the same for the small pat of butter, the dollop of marmalade. You must know the exact physical quantity of what you're about to consume. It is a quirk that baffles the few who know of it, but to you, it is essential. Energy in, energy out. It is all physics. Why would you fuel your body, the very machine that houses your mind, without first understanding the precise inputs? It seems illogical not to. It all must be understood. It all must be catalogued. This is not just a room. It's a container for your consciousness, a controlled environment where the disorderly variables of the outside world can no longer interfere. A call is placed to housekeeping. Your request is specific, unchangeable, and, to the hotel staff, deeply bizarre. You require 18 fresh towels to be delivered immediately. Not 17, not 19, 18. It is a number of immense personal significance divisible by 3 times over. It is a number of deep, resonant power. The air inside is still, holding the faint, anonymous scent of clean fabric and polished wood. It is a blank slate. Your first action is not to unpack, as you have nothing with you, but to begin the ritual. It is always the same. Then comes the first, and perhaps most critical, pillar of your daily routine, the towels. When they arrive, delivered by a maid who has been instructed never to enter the room but to leave the stack on a cart outside your door, you bring them in yourself. You handle each towel as if it were a scientific instrument. They are fluffy, white, and pristine. 9 are for your morning ablutions, to be used in a precise sequence for washing and drying. The other 9 are for polishing the drinking glasses and silverware that room service will bring, ensuring that every last trace of the previous user, every microscopic germ, has been obliterated. You polish each item until it gleams under the lamplight, your long fingers working methodically. The hotel laundry staff will soon learn to anticipate this daily mountain of barely used linen, likely speculating on the strange hygienic rites of the old man in 3327. Your life has become a fortress built of these rituals. Psychologists and biographers still debate whether these compulsions were the escalating symptoms of an obsessive-compulsive disorder that had shadowed you your entire life, or if they were a form of self-imposed mental discipline after the calculated breakfast. The day unfolds not by the clock, but by a sequence of mental tasks. You don't read newspapers. You don't listen to the radio. Lunch and dinner are solitary, calculated affairs just like breakfast. Days bleed into one another, each a perfect replica of the last. The fortress of routine is unbreachable, the silence of your sweet absolute. But there is one instrument you permit to occasionally pierce the quiet: the telephone. It sits on a polished wooden desk, black and severe. For weeks, it might remain untouched, an inert object. But then, it will ring, its shrill, metallic cry, an unwelcome ambassador from the world below. Today, it rings. The sound cuts through the thick air of your concentration, pulling your consciousness back from the intricate mental blueprint of a bladeless turbine you were examining for microscopic stress fractures. You let it ring 3 times before you rise from your chair. It will be a wall of force, impenetrable, a shield that will protect any country, no matter its size. This is what he was fishing for. A wall of force. Doctor, you mean Like a death ray? Walking over to the desk, you stand before the device, your tall, thin frame casting a long shadow in the afternoon light. It is not a death ray. You correct him, your tone sharp and professorial. That is a vulgar misinterpretation. It is a teleforce beam, a beam of focused particles, accelerated to tremendous velocity. You omit the part about being penniless, about living on the charity of a corporation that bought your genius for a song. You just let the implication hang in the air. You have the key to world peace, if only the world would provide the funding. It's a mainstream fact of your later years that you made these grand claims repeatedly, trying to entice governments from the United States to the United Kingdom, and even the Soviet Union, with the promise of this ultimate weapon. It is not for killing men. It is for destroying machines. Can you comprehend the difference? This teleforce beam is but a trifle, you say, a genuine passion creeping into your voice. You have, for a brief time, had an audience. You walked to the window and looked down at the city again. The lights are beginning to flicker on as dusk approaches. 1 billion points of light all burning at 60 cycles per second, all dancing to your tune. You gave them this, and in return, they give you this room, this telephone, and a brief, patronizing moment of their attention. A small, bitter smile touches your lips. The joke, you realize, is on them. They just don't know it yet. You end the call as abruptly as you began it, placing the receiver back on its cradle with a precise click. My true gift to the world, the one they turned their back on, was limitless, free energy for all, power drawn from the earth itself, broadcast through the air to every corner of the globe. No more wires, no more burning fuel, no more poverty. You pause, letting the weight of the lost future settle, but lesser minds prevailed, simpler minds. You don't have to say Marconi's name. The bitterness in your voice says it for you. You don't snatch it up. You wait for the 6th ring, then the 9th. What you're working on these days. It's been a while since the world has heard from Nikola Tesla. You press on, the lecture hall persona taking full command. Imagine, young man, a fleet of 10,000 enemy aircraft flying at an altitude of 5 miles. How does it work? Have you built a prototype? This is where you become coy. The principles, you explain, are perfectly sound. They are based on your own unique understanding of ether physics and electrostatic repulsion. Concepts modern science, in its infancy, cannot yet grasp. As for a prototype, the plans are complete. They are here. You tap your temple lightly with a long, bony finger. The device is in here, perfect, flawless. To build it would be a simple matter of engineering, given the proper resources. My device, from a distance of 250 miles, could bring them all down in an instant. It would be like swatting flies. An entire army's infantry could be wiped out. War would become a form of mutual suicide, a pointless expenditure of resources against an absolute defense. It would be, for all intents and purposes, a peace beam. Only then, on a number divisible by 3, do you lift the heavy bakelite receiver to your ear. A peace beam, it has a nice ring to it, much better than death ray. It's all about marketing, a lesson you learned far too late in life. You can picture the headline now. Tesla's peace beam to end all war. It's dignified. A different part of you takes over the showman, the visionary, the part that still craves the spotlight, and believes, with every fiber of its being, that it holds the keys to humanity's salvation. Historians still wonder about these moments. Were these interviews a calculated strategy to attract new investors for your theoretical projects, or were they simply the lonely, defiant cries of a man desperate to prove he still mattered? Yes, your voice is flat, betraying no curiosity. Dr. Tesla, is that you? The voice on the other end is young, eager, and laced with the unmistakable accent of a New York journalist. He introduces himself as a stringer for one of the big papers. You've spoken to his type 1,000 times. They call you when they need a colorful quote, when a slow news day requires a jolt from the past. They see you as a living headline. I am listening, you state, offering no encouragement. Well, Doug, the young man continues, a little flustered by your coldness. We were just wondering. A pause. You could hang up. You could retreat back into the perfect, predictable sanctuary of your solitude. But you don't. I am working on a project that will make war impossible, you say, your voice suddenly imbued with a resonant power. You can almost hear the furious scratching of the reporter's pencil. You sigh, a gust of faint annoyance. The press, They are always so crude, so obsessed with simple, violent terms. The reporter mumbles something affirmative. You don't believe him. You deliver this last line with a certain dramatic flair. The journalist, sensing he's struck gold, asks for more details. This, of course, is the catch. The resources. You steer the conversation towards your other great, unfinished work. The wireless transmission of power. The call winds down. The reporter has his story. The silence that floods back into the room feels heavier now. It's filled with the ghosts of your own words, the grand pronouncements and impossible promises. The faint satisfaction from the phone call evaporates as quickly as it came, leaving a familiar, bitter residue. You turn away from the window, from the glittering city that owes you so much. The grandeur of your words. Teleforce beams, limitless energy hangs in the air of Suite 3327, a stark contrast to the quiet, pressing reality of your circumstances. You are a prince of science, a king of the electrical age, but your pockets are empty. Your survival is a meticulously managed illusion. Your primary source of actual cash is a modest pension, a monthly stipend of $125 sent from your homeland, Yugoslavia. You've resided in some of New York's finest hotels, the St. Regis, the Governor Clinton. You've left most of them with a substantial unpaid bill. Was it the profound, perhaps delusional, entitlement of a man who genuinely felt the world owed him a living for the gifts he'd already given it? Or was it the calculated maneuvering of a desperate genius, a man who believed that any means were justified to keep a roof over his head so he could continue his vital work? You summon servants with a nod. You dine on food prepared to your exacting standards. Yet, you are a prisoner of this luxury, sustained by a fragile web of arrangements and the fading luster of your own name. The opulence is not yours. You are merely curating it. It is a stage set for the final act of a grand play, and you are both the lead actor and the captive audience. You look at your hands, long, elegant, pale hands that have conducted lightning and designed the future, and you know that they hold no real power anymore. Not in this world of commerce and capital. Their power is confined to the invisible realm of thought, a kingdom with no treasury and no army, ruled by a penniless prince. Perhaps you don't even know the answer yourself. You simply do what you must to survive, to keep the magnificent engine of your mind from being silenced by the mundane brutality of poverty. It's a quirky and rather unflattering tidbit of your biography. Alone in your room, you might inspect the cuffs of your shirt and notice the telltale signs of fraying. You might run a hand over your favorite silk tie, a relic from a more prosperous time, and feel that the fabric has grown unervingly thin. You remember once, years ago, a well-meaning acquaintance noticed your worn-out shoes and offered to buy you a new pair. He felt a flash of hot fury, a sense of violation so profound that you nearly severed the friendship on the spot. You refused. Of course, you would rather walk on bare soles than wear the shoes of another man's pity. You never saw it as dishonesty. In your mind, it was merely an extension of credit. You were Nikola Tesla. Your next invention was always just around the corner, the one that would finally pay for everything, the one that would shower you and your investors in riches. You weren't a deadbeat. You were simply It is a gesture of respect for their most famous son, and you accept it because it comes from your people. The Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company pays it. This is a well-established, mainstream fact of your later life. Yet the specifics were always shrouded in careful diplomacy. It's not a salary. You are not an employee. You would never stoop so low. It is classified as a consulting fee. The term is a masterpiece of corporate face saving for both you and them. They get to quietly support the man whose patents their entire empire was built upon, avoiding the public relations nightmare of having Nikola Tesla evicted onto the streets. You, in turn, get to accept their money without the humiliation of it being called what it is, a lifeline. It feels less like charity and more like a tribute. However, $125 a month in New York City, even in the 1930s, does not pay for a two-room suite at the Hotel New Yorker. It is barely enough for tips, for the occasional purchase of birdseed, and for the dry cleaning of your immaculate, yet aging, suits. It's enough to maintain the outer shell of a gentleman, but not to fund the life of a titan. The hotel bill, the great unspoken elephant in the room, is handled by a far more delicate arrangement. Pride is the currency you truly trade in. It is your shield, your armor, your last line of defense against the pity of the world. You cultivate an aura of aristocratic detachment, of a man so absorbed in matters of cosmic importance that money is a vulgar trifle beneath his notice. When you walk through the hotel lobby, your back is ramrod straight, your gaze fixed on some distant point only you can see. No one would dare guess that the man in the perfectly tailored suit is calculating whether he can afford to tip the elevator boy this week. Over the decades, you have become a reluctant expert in this financial tightrope act. Biographers and historians debate the ethics of this pattern. There are quiet moments, however, when the armor cracks. This is the central paradox of your existence. You sit in a suite that costs more per week than most men make in a year. For all the rigid sterility of your hotel life, there is one ritual that forces you out of your fortress and into the messy, unpredictable world. It's a mission of utmost importance, more vital than any press interview, more pressing than the phantom construction of your teleforce beam. You, Dan, your hat, your gloves, your long overcoat, regardless of the season. In your pocket is a small bag of a specific seed mix you've found they prefer. They see an eccentric, perhaps a lonely one. They cannot comprehend the profound connection you feel in these moments. The pigeons don't ask for patents or payment. They don't doubt your genius or mock your pronouncements. Psychologists and biographers have long debated the nature of this bond. Was it a simple, eccentric affection for animals, a lonely man's transference of human feelings onto a non-judgmental creature? Or was it, as your own sparse accounts suggest, a genuinely mystical connection? A meeting of minds that transcended species. They offer a simple, uncomplicated trust that you find nowhere else in the world. But your care goes beyond these public feedings. You have turned Suite 3328, the room meant for your equipment, into a part-time avian infirmary. She was not there for seed. She had come to tell you she was dying. As she looked at you, a light began to emanate from her eyes, a brilliant, white, powerful light, more intense, you would later claim, than anything you had ever been able to produce in your laboratories. It was a light of pure understanding and farewell. She stayed for a moment, bathing you in this silent, luminous message, and then she flew off into the night, and you knew you would never see her again. You find birds with broken wings or injured legs, and carefully bring them back to the hotel. The maids have learned not to be surprised by the sight of you striding down the hall with a sick pigeon tucked gently inside your coat. In your room, you become a surgeon. You design and build tiny, intricate splints for their delicate bones. You mix special nutritional gruels and feed them with an eye. You spend thousands of dollars you don't have on their care, ordering custom seed blends and commissioning special cages. Their gentle cooing is a more honest and comforting sound than any human conversation. You'll leave the hotel, striding through the lobby with your usual air of detached purpose. In that moment, with the death of that small, white bird, you feel that your own life's work is finished. The electrical generators, the turbines, the teleforce beam, they all seem like meaningless toys now. The one pure, perfect connection you had to another living being has been severed. You tell a friend that you have been feeding pigeons, thousands of them, for years, but it was her, and her alone, that you loved. Her death is the final, quiet heartbreak from which you will never quite recover. The pigeons still come to you in the park, but now you search the flock with a permanent, aching sense of loss. A prince of science looking for the ghost of his one true queen. The doorman hails you a cab, but you ignore him, preferring to walk the blocks to your chosen destination. Sometimes it's the grand stone steps of the New York Public Library. Other times the quiet gardens of St. Patrick's Cathedral. Today, it's Bryant Park. It is time to feed the pigeons. A flutter of movement begins in the flocks scattered across the lawns and pathways. They are not afraid. They know you. You are the tall, silent man who brings them food and, more importantly, a strange sense of calm. She is your everything. A pigeon of pure, unblemished white. She is not like the others. There is an intelligence in her eyes, a serenity in her presence that feels almost human, or perhaps something more. You love her. You have stated this quite plainly to the few people who you've allowed into the margins of your life. You love her as a man loves a woman, and she, you believe, loves you. You don't just toss breadcrumbs like the tourists. You have a system. You emit a low, soft whistle, a sound barely audible to human ears, and they come to you. They land on your shoulders, your arms, the brim of your hat, their tiny claws gripping the fabric gently. You prepare for the journey as if for a diplomatic engagement. As you approach, they begin to recognize you. To the people rushing by, you are a curious spectacle. The elegant, almost ghostly old man covered in what they dismissively call rats with wings. And among the swirling flock of grey, iridescent birds, there is one you search for with a specific, focused longing. This is the famous, quirky, and deeply revealing story of your later years. Your profound attachment to this one specific bird. On your best days, she is there in the park, and she will fly directly to your hand, ignoring the seeds to look at you with what you perceive as an ancient understanding. Then comes the night that changes everything. As you tell it, you were in your room, lying in bed in the dark, when she appeared at your open window. You're overwhelmed by a grief so profound it shatters your world. The death of the white dove leaves a silence in your life that even the rigid structure of your routine cannot fill. The grief is a cold, heavy thing, a permanent resident in the suite alongside you. There is only one place to retreat from it, one sanctuary that has never failed you, the vast, immaculate laboratory of your own mind. And so, in the long, quiet hours that follow, you turn your focus away from the world of flesh and feeling and toward the world of steel and lightning. You begin to wrestle, once again, with the teleforce beam. You don't use blueprints or drafting tables. Such tools are for minds that need crutches. You simply sit in your favorite hip-backed armchair, the one with the slightly worn velvet, and close your eyes. The floral wallpaper of the hotel room dissolves. The faint sounds of New York City fade to nothing. You are now standing in a vast, dark, infinite space, your true workshop. And here, piece by piece, you construct your ultimate machine. First, you visualize the power source. It's not a grimy, noisy engine. It's an elegant, silent giant. A massive, spherical Van de Graaff generator. Its polished metal surface humming. With contained power, you can see the charge building, the electrons dancing across its skin. A contained thunderstorm of immense voltage. You designed this, and you understand its every secret. You feel the potential building to millions of volts. A reservoir of pure force waiting to be unleashed. Next, you construct the projector, the gun. This is the part that so-called experts always get wrong. It's not a cannon. It's a long, open-ended tube, almost like a telescope, pointed at the void. A key feature, a quirky tidbit of your design that no one else seems to grasp. is that it is not a sealed vacuum. You've devised a series of airlocks using powerful vacuum pumps to maintain a perfect vacuum within the particle stream's path, while the end remains open to the atmosphere. It's an engineering challenge of staggering complexity, but in your mind, it works flawlessly. Then, you load the ammunition, not bullets, not shells. You visualize tiny, perfectly formed pellets of tungsten, a metal so dense it can pass through almost anything. A mechanism of exquisite precision feeds them into the projector's stream. They are not fired with an explosion. They are propelled by a series of powerful electrostatic fields, a process you call dynamic repulsion. Each pellet is given a massive electrical charge, then pushed by an equally massive opposing field, accelerating it to velocities that border on the impossible. Finally, you fire it. There is no bang, no recoil, no flash of light. It is utterly silent. From the end of the tube, a beam, invisible to the naked eye, erupts into the void. It's not a ray of light. It is a focused, disciplined stream of tungsten particles, a needle of matter moving at nearly the speed of light. You aim it at a target you've conjured in the darkness, a thick steel plate, representing the hull of a battleship. The beam touches it. There is no explosion. The steel simply vanishes where the beam hits, its molecular bonds instantly and utterly disintegrated. You imagine it striking an airplane. The plane doesn't blow up. It just ceases to exist, converted back into its constituent atoms. It's the ultimate weapon, a force of erasure, a very, very persuasive argument for staying home. This is the mainstream fact of your final decades, your relentless mental work on this particle beam weapon. Military analysts and physicists to this day debate the feasibility of your telephone design. Was it a fundamentally sound concept that was simply decades ahead of the necessary technology to make it viable? Or were there critical, unacknowledged flaws in your understanding of physics that would have doomed the project from the start? In your mind, there are no flaws. It is perfect. And its purpose, you remind yourself, is noble. You imagine two countries, poised for war. You give each of them a teleforce projector. An invisible, impenetrable wall now surrounds each nation. The first plane to cross the border is instantly vaporized. The first ship to enter territorial waters vanishes. War becomes an exercise in immediate, absolute futility. It is not a death ray. It is a peace beam, an engine of enforced tranquility. It's the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, conceived in the mind of a lonely pacifist years before the atomic age would make it a global reality. But then, you open your eyes, the vision fades, the silent humming generator disappears. You are back in suite 3327. The only sound is the gentle hum of the hotel's ventilation. The weapon that can level armies and end all conflict remains a phantom, a ghost trapped in your skull. You have the plans for global salvation, but you lack the resources to buy a new light bulb for the desk lamp. The sheer crushing irony of it is a physical weight. You, who can build worlds in your head, cannot affect this one. You, the master of lightning, are powerless. And the wrestling match continues, between the perfect, omnipotent creator in your mind, and the frail, forgotten, old man in the velvet chair. The frustration of the phantom teleforce beam leaves a familiar, metallic taste in your mouth. It's the taste of unfulfilled potential, a flavor you have known for more than 30 years. As you sit in the deepening twilight of your hotel room, the ghost of one failed project summons the ghost of another, far larger one. The unfinished weapon in your mind gives way to the memory of the magnificent, fallen tower. The ghost of Wardenclyffe has come to call. Your mind drifts back, away from the concrete and steel of 1930s Manhattan, to the salt marshes and potato fields of Long Island at the turn of the century. The air is clean and smells of the sea, and rising out of the flat landscape like something from a dream, you see it again. Your tower, not the ruin it became, but as it was in its brief, glorious prime. A skeletal lattice of enormous wooden beams soaring 187 feet into the sky. Intricate and powerful, and crowning it all, the great terminal, a 68-foot diameter hemisphere, a giant copper mushroom cap that gleamed in the sun, waiting to connect the entire planet. It was, you still believe, your masterpiece, the physical manifestation of your greatest vision. To the locals, it was a terrifying spectacle, especially at night. You remember the tests, a quirky tidbit of local lore you secretly enjoyed. You would power it up, and the air around the tower would crackle with energy. Enormous bolts of man-made lightning, some over 100 feet long, would erupt from the dome, illuminating the countryside for miles around. The sound was like thunder, and the light a brilliant, terrifying purple. The neighbors thought you were a mad sorcerer dabbling in forces man was not meant to know. In a way, they were right. But the tower's purpose was not to frighten farmers, it was to liberate humanity. You close your eyes and remember explaining it all to your primary investor, the great J.P. Morgan, a man whose portrait now hangs in boardrooms while yours gathers dust. He thought he was funding a superior system of wireless telegraphy, a way to beat Marconi at his own game and flash stock quotes across the ocean. A noble goal for a banker, I suppose. But your ambition was infinitely grander. You explained that sending messages was a parlor trick. The tower, you told him, was a global transmitter, not just of information, but of energy itself. By tapping into the resonant frequency of the Earth, Wardenclyffe would turn the entire planet into a single, massive conductor. Any point on the globe could receive the signal. Any ship at sea, any home, even a flying machine in the high atmosphere, could draw power from this invisible, omnipresent source, cleanly, efficiently, and, to Morgan's horror, for free. This is the great, tragic, mainstream fact of your career. This was the moment the dream died. You can still see the look on Morgan's face, the shift in his eyes from capitalist enthusiasm to profound skepticism. If anyone can draw on the power, he is said to have asked, "Where do we put the meter?" In that one simple question, the chasm between your utopian vision and his commercial reality became unbridgeable. His funding, the lifeblood of the project, dried up. Historians and engineers still argue to this day whether Wardenclyffe could have ever worked as you promised. Was it a technically sound plan for a global utopia, tragically sabotaged by the narrow vision of industrial capitalism? Or was it a beautiful, romantic, but ultimately impossible dream, based on a flawed understanding of physics that would have failed regardless of funding? You know what you believe. The physics was sound. The dream was real. But after Morgan pulled out, you couldn't find other backers. The financial panic of 1907 was the final nail in the coffin. The tower stood for years, a silent, hollow monument to a future that never arrived. And then came the final indignity. In 1917, with the country at war, the government ordered it demolished, fearing German spies could use it as a landmark for submarines. You see the explosion in your mind's eye, the dynamite charges at its base, the groan of the massive wooden beams, the slow, sickening collapse of your beautiful creation into a worthless pile of scrap, timber and copper. It was sold for $1,750 to pay off your debts. A dream of a connected, powered world, sold by the pound. The memory fades, and you are back in your quiet hotel room. The ghost of the tower recedes, but it never fully leaves. It is always there, a silent reminder of your greatest failure. The Teleforce project, the particle beam weapon. It's all an attempt to recapture that grand ambition, to finally complete a world-changing vision. But the haunting echo of Wardenclyffe's fall also fuels your paranoia, your pride, and your deep, unshakable conviction that you can trust no one with your dreams but yourself. Asterisk. You are adrift in the past, haunted by the ghost of a collapsed tower, unaware that in the present, new ghosts are beginning to gather. While you sit in your self-imposed isolation, feeling forgotten and overlooked by the world, a certain part of that world is becoming intensely interested in you. Your whispers from room 3327 have not, as you suspect, vanished into the ether. They have been caught, collected, and filed. You are no longer just a recluse. You are a subject, miles away. In the humorless, bureaucratic heart of Washington, D.C., a file is growing thicker. It rests in a drab, gray metal cabinet in the headquarters of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The file has your name on it, Nikola Tesla. Its existence is, of course, a secret. The Bureau's director, J. Edgar Hoover, a man who collected secrets the way other men collect stamps, has taken a curious interest in the eccentric old inventor in the New York hotel. Imagine a young agent, clean-shaven and anonymous in a dark suit, sitting at a wooden desk under the flat glare of an office lamp. He is typing up a memorandum for the file. He starts with a newspaper clipping, one of the articles that resulted from your recent phone calls. He has underlined certain phrases in red pencil. Wall of force, particle beam, destroy 10,000 airplanes, make war impossible. To the public, These are the sensational ramblings of a fading genius. To the FBI, in an era of escalating global tension, they are potential national security threats. The agent's report methodically lists the known facts. Your place of birth, Smiljan, Austrian Empire, now Yugoslavia, a foreigner. Your known associates, your past investors, your public pronouncements, it's all there. The memo makes special note of your attempts to offer the death ray technology to various governments, including the United Kingdom and your own homeland. The question hangs unspoken in the dry, bureaucratic prose. What if another country, a hostile country, actually takes you seriously? What if the crazy old man in suite 3327 isn't so crazy after all? This is the central, mainstream fact of this chapter of your life. The US government was watching you. Historians debate the Bureau's true motivations. Was it a legitimate, prudent concern for national security? A fear that your theoretical weapon might contain a kernel of truth that could be exploited by the Axis powers? Or was it simply another instance of Hoover's sweeping paranoia? The Bureau's compulsive need to monitor and collect information on any prominent individual who deviated from the norm. The truth is likely a mixture of both. The file contains more than just newspaper clippings. There are reports from informants. Perhaps it's a hotel employee, a busboy, or a maid who has been quietly asked to keep an eye on you. Their reports would paint a strange picture. Subject exhibits highly eccentric behavior. The agent types maintains a rigid, obsessive daily routine, displays extreme germophobia, refusing to shake hands and ordering 18 fresh towels daily. This last detail, a quirky tidbit of your life, is no longer just a personal compulsion. It's now evidence in a government file, a data point in a psychological profile being assembled without your knowledge. Another informant reports on your daily walks to feed pigeons in Bryant Park. The memo might speculate, with classic intelligence agency gravity, that this could be a method for passing coded messages. The agent typing this has probably never known the simple comfort of a non-human friend. The irony is thick enough to be measured with calipers. You, who feel so invisible, are being closely watched. You, who feel so powerless, are considered a potential source of world-altering power. You, who trusts no one, are surrounded by the unseen eyes and ears of a government that doesn't trust. You, your fortress of solitude has been breached, not by a physical intrusion, but by the silent, steady accumulation of information. The file eventually makes its way to Hoover's desk. You can picture him, a bulldog of a man, reading it under a single, intense lamp in his vast office. He reads about the death ray, the pigeons, the Yugoslavian pension. He sees a puzzle, a brilliant mind, a foreign allegiance, a potential superweapon, and profound eccentricity. Is Tesla a patriot, a threat, a charlatan, a madman? Hoover doesn't know, and J. Edgar Hoover did not like not knowing. He makes a neat, decisive note in the margin of the memo. Continue to monitor. Of interest. You have become of interest to the most powerful secret keeper in the country. The echoes from your room are now official government records. The gears of the unseen government machine grind on, compiling their secret file on you, but you remain blissfully unaware. Your concerns are more immediate, more personal. Your birthday is approaching, and with it, the familiar pull of a tradition you started years ago. While your body feels the increasing weight of its 80-plus years, you decide your mind needs to prove its undiminished vigor. You will hold court. You will grant the world an audience. You announce your annual birthday press conference. It's not the grand affair it once was. There will be no lavish ballroom at the Waldorf Astoria, no banquet table laden with expensive food. The stage for this final performance will be your own suite at the Hotel New Yorker. On the designated day, you prepare with the meticulousness of an actor before a premiere. You select your best suit, the dark one that still holds its shape, and a tie of pure silk. You are frail. Yes, your movements are slower, more deliberate. But your appearance, you insist, must be impeccable. It is a part of the armor of genius. They arrive in the early afternoon, a small troop of reporters and newsmen. They crowd into your living room, their notebooks and press cameras looking bulky and intrusive in your personal space. You recognize some of the faces, the older, more cynical journalists who have been coming for years, knowing they'll get a few bizarre quotes for a slow news day. And there are new ones, younger men whose eyes betray a mixture of awe, pity, and the raw ambition of a reporter smelling a colorful story. You serve them coffee and cakes, playing the gracious host. But this is all a prelude. Once they are settled, you stand before them, and the performance begins. This is the mainstream fact of your final years, these increasingly theatrical press events, where your claims grew in lockstep with your age. Gentlemen, you begin, your voice holding much of its old, resonant power. I have, in the past year, completed my work. The world is at the brink of another terrible conflict, and I have offered the solution. You speak of the Teleforce weapon, but your claims are more specific, more desperate now. You announce that the technical plans are not only perfect, but have been offered to the Allied governments, the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Yugoslavia, as a means to defend themselves. You describe its capabilities again. The invisible wall of force, the instant annihilation of invading armies. You are not just a theorist anymore. You are a patriot, offering the salvation of the free world from your hotel room. But you don't stop there. The dam of your imagination has broken. You proceed to unveil a cascade of other inventions. You announce a new method of detecting submarines from a great distance, using a unique type of wave that you alone understand. You describe a new kind of turbine, so powerful and efficient, it will make all other engines obsolete. Then, you make the leap from engineering to metaphysics. You calmly state that you are working on a method to photograph the human retina to capture and project a person's thoughts. This last one is a quirky tidbit that sends a ripple through the room, a camera for the mind. The reporters scribbled furiously. It's the perfect Tesla quote. Brilliant, baffling, and utterly unverifiable. You see their pens moving, and for a moment, you feel a surge of triumph. They are listening. Yet as you speak, you can feel the energy draining from your frail body. A slight tremor enters your long, elegant hands as you hold up a page with a complex diagram. Your voice, which started so strong, begins to thin. You are a dying star, attempting one last, brilliant flash before collapsing into darkness. Historians and psychologists still debate the meaning of these final, strange performances. Were they the last, desperate attempts of a great mind to contribute, to force the world to listen and secure a legacy before it was too late? Or were they a tragic spectacle, a performative cry for relevance from a lonely old man terrified of fading into obscurity as his body betrayed him? As you finish your pronouncements, a wave of exhaustion washes over you. The press conference dissolves into a series of individual questions, which you bat away with practiced ease. Finally, they begin to pack up their things, their notebooks filled with enough sensational material to last for weeks. They thank you, their voices tinged with that familiar, maddening mix of condescension and respect. And then they are gone. The door closes, and the silence that rushes in is absolute. The room smells of stale coffee and cigarette smoke. Empty cups litter the tables. You stand alone in the center of your makeshift stage, the energy and adrenaline completely gone, leaving only a deep, aching weariness. You have held court. You have given them visions of a future they cannot comprehend. And now you are alone again, with nothing but the echoes and the desperate, gnawing hope that this time, someone, somewhere, truly understood. The brief flurry of the press conference fades, and your world returns to its quiet, monastic rhythm. But outside the thick windows of your suite, the larger world has no such peace. It is the early 1940s, and the planet is tearing itself apart. World War II is raging, a global symphony of violence and desperation. But most of its notes barely reach you. You are not unaware of the war, of course. You are simply above it. You don't read the daily papers with their breathless headlines about battles in places you've never heard of. You certainly don't own a radio, that noisy, chaotic device that crackles with propaganda and bad news. You see the war in glimpses, like scenes from a poorly directed film. On your rare walks, you see the newsstands shouting about victories and defeats. You see young men in uniform, their faces a mixture of pride and fear, walking with their sweethearts. You hear the deep, mournful horns of ships in the harbor, gathering in convoys to make the perilous journey across the Atlantic. This is the great, undeniable fact of the era. The world is at war. To you, however, the conflict is a crude and inefficient affair. It is a war of brute force, of explosions and shrapnel, of clumsy machines spewing fire. It is a barbaric spectacle, a failure of imagination. While the world's greatest armies clash with tanks and planes, you are engaged in a far more sophisticated form of combat. Your private battles are fought in the silent theater of your mind, against the stubborn laws of physics and the fading echoes of your own past. You are a man armed with an equation that could end it all, watching children fight with sticks and stones. You feel a profound, almost pitying detachment from the conventional war effort. You've already offered them the solution, the beam, the elegant key to an instant, bloodless peace. They have not taken you up on your offer, so now you let the noise of their clumsy war fade into the background. It is irrelevant. The real work, the important work, is happening right here, in the quiet of room 3327. However, the war finds a way to pierce your armor in one specific, painful way: your homeland. You hear fragments of news about Yugoslavia, about the Nazi invasion, about the brutal conflict engulfing the valleys and mountains of your childhood. This news causes you a sharp, personal anguish that the headlines about Pearl Harbor or the Blitz never could. This is a quirky, humanizing tidbit of your later years. For all your cosmic detachment, you remained a fierce Serbian patriot. You worry about your family, about the destruction of your people. You spend hours writing letters to Yugoslavian diplomats and leaders in exile, offering advice and consolation, your elegant script filling page after page. Historians debate the nature of your profound detachment from the wider war. Was it the intellectual arrogance of a genius who, believing he possessed a superior solution, dismissed the ongoing global struggle as a tragic but irrelevant sideshow? Or was it the necessary defense mechanism of a frail, elderly man, a mind so sensitive that the sheer horror of the conflict was too much to bear, forcing a retreat into the controlled, familiar world of his own ideas? So while the world fights its war, you fight yours. Your battlefields are not the beaches of France or the deserts of Africa. They are the quiet corridors of your memory and the infinite space of your imagination. You fight the ghost of Wardenclyffe, wrestling with the decades-old bitterness of that failure. You fight the profound grief for a white pigeon that represented the only pure love you ever knew. And most of all, you fight the mathematics of your impossible dreams, spending countless hours running calculations in your head, tweaking designs for turbines and weapons that will never be built, fighting for a breakthrough in a laboratory that doesn't exist. The planet is engulfed in a war of nations, but you are a nation of one, at war with time, regret, and the very limits of human thought. The private war you wage within the walls of your suite is all-consuming, a constant, silent battle against the ghosts of your past and the phantoms of your future. It is a battle that requires every ounce of your focus, every watt of your formidable mental energy, and it is a battle that is beginning to take its toll in ways that are obvious to everyone but you. The great, brilliant mind, once a star of blinding intensity, is beginning to fray at the edges. You don't notice it, of course. From your perspective, your intellect has never been sharper. You feel you are on the precipice of a final, grand synthesis of all your work. The routines, the obsessions, they are not signs of decay. They are the scaffolding of your ultimate creation, the discipline required for the final push. When you misplace a memory or repeat a story, you dismiss it as the unimportant shedding of trivial data, to make room for more profound thoughts. But the few people who still orbit your lonely star see the truth. They see the slow, gentle fading. Your nephew, Sava Kozanovic, a Yugoslavian diplomat, comes to visit. He is one of the few family members you tolerate, a link to the homeland you so dearly miss. He sits across from you in the sweet, stuffy living room, his face etched with a concern you mistake for rapt attention. One moment, you are the Tesla of old. You speak with breathtaking clarity about alternating currents, about the principles of resonant frequencies. Your eyes alight with the fire of pure genius. You outline, for the 100th time, the elegant physics of the teleforce beam. Your nephew listens, awestruck as always by the power of your mind. But then, something shifts. In the middle of a complex sentence about particle acceleration, you pause. Your gaze becomes distant. "I must check on her," you say, your voice suddenly soft. "The maids are not careful with the windows. She needs me." Sava knows you are talking about the white dove, the pigeon who died years ago. He has heard this before. He gently tries to steer the conversation back, but the thread is lost. You are now adrift in a memory, your brilliant lecture forgotten, replaced by a muddled, painful longing for a creature that no longer exists. A few minutes later, you might launch into a tirade against Marconi, but this time it's different. The old, sharp bitterness is now a looping, confused rant, the facts jumbled, the timeline blurred. This becomes the mainstream fact of your final years. The slow, observable decline of your cognitive functions. Friends and observers noted that changes your once photographic memory. The mind that could hold entire libraries of technical data now has gaps. Your social graces, always eccentric, have withered completely. Your germophobia intensifies. You might send back a perfectly good meal because you perceive a flaw in the arrangement of the boiled potatoes. You spend even more of your day in ritualistic cleaning and calculation. Biographers and medical historians still struggle to diagnose you from a distance. Was it the onset of a specific neurological condition, perhaps a form of dementia or Alzheimer's, accelerated by your poor diet and extreme social isolation? Or was it simply the inevitable and tragic burnout of a brain that had operated at an impossibly high frequency for more than 80 years? A great engine, finally, slowly, wearing out its most vital gears. The few reporters who still call on you notice it too. They come seeking a sensational quote about death rays, and instead find a man who seems to be fading in and out of the present. They see the physical changes as well. You are impossibly thin. Now, your expensive suits hanging on your skeletal frame like clothes on a scarecrow. There are deep, dark circles under your eyes. The physical manifestation of a mind that never ever rests to the outside world. You are becoming the caricature you always feared, the mad scientist in his lonely tower. Your paranoia, once a specific mistrust of certain rivals, has blossomed into a more general suspicion. You might become convinced that hotel staff are moving your papers, that spies are trying to steal your thoughts through the walls. The irony is that your mind, which once sought to create order on a global scale, is now losing its own internal order, succumbing to the very chaos you so desperately tried to control. The fortress of your routine has become a prison, and the king inside is slowly losing his grip on the kingdom. The great, complex engine of your mind continues its slow, inevitable power down. The fraying edges of your consciousness soften. The sharp lines of your obsessions blur into a gentle, persistent hum. The calendar pages turn, unnoticed, bringing the world to the cold, stark beginning of a new year. 1943. You are 86 years old. The private war is nearly over. The New York winter is a bitter one, the wind howling around the high floors of the hotel like a hungry animal. But you barely notice the cold. A different kind of chill has settled deep within you, a weariness that no amount of sleep can cure. Your routines, once the rigid scaffolding of your day, now feel impossibly heavy. The walk to the window to look out over the city requires a monumental effort. The precise calculations of your food have ceased. You have little appetite now. A few days into the new year, you feel a distinct sense of finality. You know, with the same certainty that you once knew the laws of electromagnetism, that the current is failing. The great dynamo of your heart, which has beaten billions of times, is beginning to stutter. On January 5th, you are seen by a hotel employee for the last time. After that, you retreat into your suite for good. You place the stiff cardboard sign on the outer handle of your door. Upon it are two simple words that have governed your life for decades. Do not disturb. It is your final request to the world. Leave me be. Let me finish this in peace. You'll lie down on your bed. You are not wrestling with the Teleforce beam anymore. The grand cosmic equations have faded. The battles with long-dead rivals have fallen silent. What comes to you now, in the final, quiet hours, are simpler things. Not the roar of your AC generators, but the gentle lowing of cattle in a field in Smiljan. Not the face of J.P. Morgan, but the soft, kind face of your mother, her hands smelling of earth and herbs. You remember the mist on your face at Niagara Falls, that first moment you saw the raw, untamed power you were destined to harness. And then, you think of the pigeons, the comforting weight of them on your shoulders, their gentle cooing a bomb against the noise of the world. And through the flock, one flies forward, as she always does in your memory. The pure white dove. You imagine her at your window, not with a message of death this time, but of passage. The brilliant, soft light emanates from her eyes, filling the room, pushing back the shadows. It is not frightening. It is calm. It is welcome. You feel your own consciousness, that restless, brilliant spark that illuminated the 20th century, begin to dissolve into that gentle, loving light. Your heart gives one last, tired flutter, and then is still. For 2 full days, the world remains unaware. The The Do Not Disturb sign hangs on the door, a silent, respected sentinel. Inside, there is only perfect silence. Historians still debate the exact time of your passing. The coroner would later place it on the evening of January 7th, but for 2 days, your secret was your own. Your final wish for privacy was granted, a testament to the profound isolation you had so carefully constructed. On the morning of January 8th, a hotel maid named Alice Monaghan begins her rounds. She sees the sign on your door. She knows Dr. Tesla's eccentricities and has been instructed not to bother you, but 2 days is a long time, even for you. A quiet sense of unease prompts her to act. She takes out her passkey, her heart pounding gently, and she turns the lock. She pushes the door open and peers inside. The room is not in disarray. It is neat, ordered, clean. It looks as though you might have just tidied up before taking a nap. She sees your tall, thin frame lying on the bed. You are on your back, your arms at your sides, your head resting peacefully on the pillow. You look, for all the world, as if you are simply asleep. There is no sign of struggle, no hint of pain. The great, restless mind is finally at rest. The long, boring adventure of your incredible life has come to its quiet, undisturbed end. The 80 trunks of your life's work sat in a government-sealed warehouse, a library of lightning waiting for a reader. The pressing question for the US government was no longer just about securing your papers, but understanding them. Did the ramblings of the old man in the hotel room actually contain the formula for a weapon that could change the course of the war? They needed an expert to venture into the labyrinth of your mind and report back that the man they chose for this task was a respected physicist and engineer from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a professor named John G. Trump. In a strange quirk of history, this expert, tasked with judging the final legacy of one of history's most famous inventors, would later become known for being the uncle of a future American president. This is the peculiar, mainstream fact at the heart of the mystery. Professor Trump was given access to the entirety of the seized material and tasked with finding the fire behind all the smoke. He spent days sifting through your elegant looping script and your intricate, beautiful diagrams. He saw the undeniable, foundational genius in your early work on alternating current and radio technology. But as he delved into the later material, the work that consumed your final decades, his assessment grew dismissive. In his final 3-page report to the Office of Alien Property, Trump concluded that your efforts had been primarily of a speculative, philosophical, and somewhat promotional character. He found no evidence of a workable design for a particle beam weapon, stating that the plans were little more than theoretical concepts with no feasible path to construction. In short, the government's expert declared that the death ray was a dud. The great secret, he reported, was that there was no secret. Based on this official assessment, the urgency faded. The government deemed your papers to hold no immediate threat to national security. After years of legal wrangling by your nephew Sava, the bulk of your estate was finally released. In 1952, the surviving trunks and all their contents were shipped across the ocean to Yugoslavia, where they would form the basis of the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. And this is where the story should have ended. A sad, quiet tale of a brilliant mind whose last years were spent on fanciful dreams, with all his work now resting safely in a museum. But it didn't end there, because while most of your papers were returned, nagging questions and inconsistencies began to surface, giving birth to one of the 20th century's most enduring scientific mysteries, the mystery of the lost trunks. It began with your hotel safe. You had told your nephew and others that the truly vital plans, the final, perfected designs for the Teleforce, were kept in a specific safe. When the authorities finally opened it after your death, they reported it was empty. Where did the contents go? Had you moved them, or had someone else gotten to them first? Then there were the inventories. The lists compiled by the OAP were vague. They catalogued 80 trunks or various crates, but the exact contents were not publicly detailed. Whispers began to circulate. Did the government secretly copy your most important work before returning the originals? Did they hold back certain key documents, or even entire trunks, filled with your most revolutionary and world-changing ideas? This question remains the subject of intense scholarly and conspiratorial debate. Fueling the fire is the legend of the Black Notebook. It's a classic quirky tidbit of your lore, a rumor that you carried a specific notebook with you at all times, one that contained the distilled essence of your most secret work. This black notebook was never found among the items returned to your family. Did it ever truly exist, or was it just a myth? If it was real, its disappearance is perhaps the most tantalizing piece of the puzzle. These loose threads, the empty safe, the vague inventories, the missing notebook, created a vacuum that was quickly filled with conspiracy theories. Theories that claim the government's expert, John G. Trump, either missed the point entirely or deliberately misled his superiors. Theories that claim your work on free energy and particle beams was not only viable but was secretly co-opted, becoming the hidden foundation for decades of secret military research. From the Star Wars Defense Initiative to other exotic weapons programs, the official story is simple. A sad genius died, and his speculative papers were eventually sent home, but the mystery remains far more compelling. The contents of your mind became a modern myth, a ghost story for scientists, a hunt for a treasure that may or may not have ever existed, and the world is left to wonder what, exactly, was locked away in those final, lost trunks. And so, the story ends, not with a definitive answer, but with a quiet, lingering echo. The mystery of the lost trunks and the empty safe became the final, posthumous invention of Nikola Tesla, a myth so powerful it has overshadowed much of his real, tangible work. For decades after your death, your name faded into relative obscurity, a footnote in the story of electricity, eclipsed by more pragmatic and better marketed men like Edison. But then, something you predicted came to pass, a global wireless system of information, the internet. And on that internet, your story was resurrected. You became a patron saint of the brilliant outsider, a symbol for every misunderstood genius who was cheated by the system. A new generation, living in the wirelessly connected world you dreamed of, discovered your tale and turned you into an icon. Today, your name is famously emblazoned on the side of electric cars that silently cruise down the highways of the world you envisioned. A mainstream vindication that arrived a century too late. The echoes from room 3327 have grown from faint whispers into a roar. The solitary man in the hotel, lost in his private battles, has become a hero for the digital age. The debate over your life has become a modern legend. Were you a tragic hero who held the keys to a technological utopia, a man whose work was stolen and suppressed by shadowy forces? Or were you a flawed visionary, a man whose own towering pride, deepening paranoia, and obsessive nature made it impossible for you to collaborate, to compromise, to do the messy, practical work of bringing a dream into the real world? The truth, as always, likely lies somewhere in the vast grey space between the two extremes. Perhaps, in the end, the most powerful parts of your story are not the grand, unproven claims, but the small, human details. The world may never get a working free energy device from your notes, but it has the unforgettable story of your profound love for a single white Pajuna quirky, tender tidbit that reveals more about your soul than any schematic could. Image of you, the master of lightning, gently nursing an injured bird in a luxury hotel room, is a paradox that is more compelling than any lost death ray. The boring adventure of your final years was the story of a mind turning inward, retreating from a world it could no longer shape. You built a fortress of routine and memory to protect yourself, and from that fortress, you launched ideas so vast they continue to ripple through our imagination. The secrets you took with you to that quiet, undisturbed final sleep have proven to be more powerful than any technology you could have left behind. They ensure that we will never stop looking for you, listening for you. In the echoes from that lonely room on the 33rd floor, the outside world has long since faded away. The story of the lonely genius is over. The mysteries of the lost papers, the death rays, the pigeons, none of it matters now. Let the questions dissolve. Let the details blur and soften. There is a deep peace in not knowing, a quiet comfort in letting the story become a dream. The hum of the great generators has fallen silent. The spark of the brilliant mind has found its rest. And now, it is time for your own mind to find that same quiet, that same peace. There are no more problems to solve tonight, no more memories to wrestle with. There is only the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing, a soft current pulling you out into a calm and silent sea. Let the last images fade like old photographs, leaving only the darkness, the comfort, and the deep, welcoming stillness. It is time to drift. It is time to sleep.